Now, my Xbox to myself, time to myself, so let's see, what game should I do? Play a wrestling game, although if I play too much of it, it would feel like a monotonous chore. Rare Replay? 30 of the best Rare games ever made. But I'm strangely in a Capcom mood at the minute. I want an atmospheric Capcom game. One that grabs my attention, really gets me. How about these two? And which one to play? Hang on. I know what to do. It's Deadrising time! That's right, lads and ladies, the X-Boy is going to be talking about another Deadrising game. Why so suddenly? Why so randomly? Well, it's quite simple. I made a Twitter post earlier, and to this day it still remains devoid of comments, so simply to get this idea, I played the game, nodded, and said, I could talk about this. So without further ado, let's get on with this review of Deadrising 3 before people realize that I skipped Deadrising 2. Yeah. Now the story to Deadrising 3 is pretty simple. You know, zombies fill a fictional city in California. You play as Nick, who is a mechanic searching for supplies. After failing said search, he meets up with a couple survivors and they hide in a diner.
You okay, Nick?
That is, until the zombies gain a hankering for that good old human flesh and kill 2 of the 5 survivors, including an old lady, which makes me very sad. A while later, Nick's told that the military are doing what they can to subdue the zombie infestation. That is, by killing anything that moves. Ah yes. Genocide truly is the only answer. But what about the innocent? Back on track. Really, the story to the game is the same as the others. Survivor gets caught in a zombie-caused pickle, tries their best to either find their way out or investigate it, and then the military tries to kill you. But let's be honest, if you're playing a Deadrising game, there's only a few things you care about. The zombie killing, the weapons, and the psychopath boss battles. For weapons, you can use the usual from a baseball bat, a gun, and other blunt and sharp objects, to the unusual like a lawnmower, a DVD player, and a lust cannon, which is a flamethrower shaped to resemble a I apologize for this offensive joke. I promise to never make such crude jokes again, and I will stick to being child-friendly. I promise that if this joke is ever to be repeated, I will not and shall not ever make a YouTube video again as to not offend the youth. Thanks, YouTube. Now, I mentioned psychopath boss battles in this game, so I might as well go into detail. Each Deadrising game has at least 7 people tainted by the zombie apocalypse that harbor one of the 7 deadly sins. You know them, but let's go through them. Sin number 1. Wrath. We can all be driven to madness, but how far would our wrath drive us? Maybe not as far as Zi Wong, the monk who punishes those who disturbs his peace by murdering them. And since he's the first psychopath in the game, that sort of thing can be a huge surprise to you, unless you've ever played a Deadrising game before in your life. Sin number 2. Greed. When you raid the fridge at midnight and decide to take that slice of cake that was meant to be for your dear old granny, that's greed. Greed in this game is presented by a Dr. Albert Contiello, a surgeon that performs some sadistic surgery on survivors before harvesting their organs and selling them on the black market. He also drugs the protagonist before the fight, and therefore has every other survivor in the building a hallucination of Albert. You need to find the correct one and attack him to take him out. During this time, he will twitch manically if you attack him, and he will find other survivors during the fight and decide to still conduct his surgeries on them.
Simple. The free market?
Sin number 3. Gluttony. Now for gluttony, let's say instead of taking Dear Granny's slice of cake, that you ate the fridge itself. That's gluttony, which Darlene, the last name I have no idea, knows that all too well. Finding refuge in Uncle Billy's buffet, Darlene zooms around the building, eating every bit of food that her eyes see. And you know she means business when you see her armed with a giant spork. The deadliest of weapons.
Disclaimer, the ex-boy doesn't actually own a spork, he just decided to combine a spoon and a fork for this joke. We hope that it didn't waste your time.
Sin 4. Pride. Pride in oneself is essential to maintain motivation, but there are some people who can be so clouded by their own self-pride that they become bloated with self-importance and quite a toxic ego. This is no different for the female bodybuilder Jerry Gallo. Determined to win a bodybuilding competition that has clearly been cancelled, after a misgendering accident, she chooses that the best way to resolve this simple misunderstanding is to clubber Nick to death with a giant barbell. Sin number 5. Envy. Jealousy, also known as envy, is something that people seem to have very commonly, and for Kenny Dermott, this is far from different. A very strong stereotype of a nerd, Kenny gets jealous of the heroic actions of Nick and chooses to upstage him by tying up one of the survivors, only to, quote-unquote, save them from a zombie attack to prove his superiority to Nick. Sin 6. Sloth. A sloth is an animal synonymous for all the sleeping and lazing about that it does, and for Theodore Lagerfeld Jr., this is rather similar. Choosing to play video games in his panic room, he doesn't fight Nick, but sends armed remote-controlled helicopters to kill him. A shame for him that when you finally encounter him, he has a heart attack and dies. And finally, one of the most popular sins, and also one of the most popular psychopaths in this game, and Sin 7, Lust. Those overtaken by lust may find that sex is their top priority. Dear God, let's make this short. Dylan Fuentes is a perverse S&M performer with the lust cannon, the flamethrower that looks like a massive peen. He asks Nick to give him the sex, and when Nick quite intelligently says no, Dylan chooses to keep 2 hostages tied to chairs until he becomes more obedient. Oh God. Anyway, what do I think of Deadrising 3? Well, I really like it. It's a great zombie killing game and a good alternative for Resident Evil. Though both franchises are great in their own way. Now to get next month's video prepped, I'll see you guys later. Don't worry guys, I've got this. X-Boy, signing out. Bring it on, you meat-munching mongrels! That's probably one of you.